the Iran-Israel conflict rages on. President Trump earlier today saying he has not made a final decision on whether the United States will directly strike the Islamic Republic, but that Iran does want to come to the negotiating table. So for more on the oil market volatility, RBC's global head of commodity strategy is Helima Croft. She joins us now. She's also a CNBC contributor. Helima, I understand you were just at a roundtable sort of discussing all of this and the Middle East tensions. Where are you thinking right now that policy is sitting between where the United States will get involved and not?
I can tell you there is almost a sense it's like a 50-50 call on whether President Trump will authorize U.S. airstrikes on this Fordo enrichment facility. That is the enrichment facility that the Iranians use for their highly enriched uranium, the close to weapons-grade uranium. Their high-speed centrifuges sit in that facility. Israel is not thought to have the capabilities to disable that facility. They will need the United States. And so there really is really a lot of speculation that we're going to become involved in this conflict. And that could put us in a very different place in terms of regional escalation.
What does it mean for the price of oil if we're sitting at 50-50?
Well, here's the thing. If we do get U.S. intervention into the conflict, that raises a prospect of, does the regime in Iran decide they are facing an existential survival crisis? Do they deploy their short-range missiles? They have significant stockpiles remaining of short-range missiles that can be used to target regional energy facilities in the Gulf. Do we see attacks on ships? And we did see this playbook in 2019. I think there's a lot of recency bias in this market. We forget that in 2019, after we reimposed maximum pressure sanctions on Iran, Iran targeted tankers off the coast of UAE. They hit critical pipelines. And then in September of 2019, targeted Saudi Arabia's Abqaiq facility, the largest oil processing facility in the world, taking off half of Saudi Arabia's production temporarily. What security experts are saying in this city is that Iran sent warning shots in 2019. If they had wanted to take that Saudi facility off for months, they could have done so. They could have sunk those tankers. So the question is, will Iran turn to that playbook if they feel that the regime's survival is at risk?
Helima, it's Tim. Who suffers the most if we see a spike, north of 80, 85? And again, if you think about Iranian oil and you think about Russian oil, where's it really been going, at least secretly? And I think about China. I'm just kind of curious what the macro of oil is here.
I see where this question is going. I mean, certainly the U.S. consumer is going to suffer in a higher oil price environment. It works against President Trump's, desire to bring inflation down. But there is this narrative out there that Iran is going to be so concerned about, displeasing China, its main customer for crude, that it wouldn't dare, curtail supplies of energy to China. Here's the thing, though. If the regime is facing an existential threat, and think about it, I mean, they have been subjected to withering airstrikes. I mean, Israel has complete air superiority over Iran at this point. The head of the IRGC has been killed. Number of generals have been killed. If the regime believes that the U.S. is coming into this conflict and that could put their survival at risk, I don't think they're going to care about China as their top priority. I think there is a real risk they'll seek to impose costs on us for doing so. So again, I don't think we should be sanguine about the risk to oil in the event that we see further escalation from here. The view in Washington is they retain capabilities to strike oil if that is their choice.
Helima, what's the scenario, if any, where you see an oil spike and it lasts, it lingers, as opposed to the oil spikes that we see that just are a couple-day events and they come right back down?
Well, again, I think about what type of lens are you using for the Middle East? I mean, certainly we haven't seen significant disruptions in the past couple of years. But if you look at major conflicts in the Middle East, the Gulf War, Arab Spring, we had month, sometimes year-long disruptions of significant volumes of oil, million-plus volumes of oil. And so the question is, do we see a significant attack on a facility that takes that facility offline? I mentioned Saudi Arabia, but also look to Iraq. I mean, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq operate in close proximity to the most important energy facilities in Iraq. Iraq is the second largest OPEC producer, responsible for around 4 million barrels a day of production. Those facilities, I think, would be at risk in an escalation situation. Everybody focuses on the Straits of Hormuz. Yes, the Fifth Fleet is in Bahrain, the U.S. Fifth Fleet. They could probably reopen the Straits, but that does not mean that Iran could not mine the straits, couldn't target individual tankers. They could cause problems in the straits. And one more thing I'm going to tell you is we're already getting reports that Iran is jamming ship transponders very, very aggressively. Qatar Energy, the Greek shipping authority, has already issued warnings to their vessels not to traverse the Straits of Hormuz at this point. So again, these are not calm waters, even though we have not had missiles flying in the straits.